Hi everyone, welcome to the Paula Peralta Show, where I bring together people that I absolutely adore and respect and am inspired by, and we talk about whatever we want because it's my show. So that's what we do. I love that you love that.
I really do love that.
So we're joined today by one of quickly becoming one of my favorite humans in the world. Like you have those moments where like you kind of like watch people from afar and then your orbits collide, and it's just like such a beautiful thing. And so I'm joined by Wesley Rogers today, who I could go on and on about, but incredible talent. Look him up, and after this, you're gonna love him as much as I do. Maybe.
Thank you, Paula.
Hello, my friend.
Hi.
Okay, so it's so funny because there's so many places that I feel like we could go based on like so many conversations that we've had in the time that we've known each other. But one of the things that I love about you is that for me, like when I think of like words that describe certain people, like creator is one of like the most dynamic words that I think of when I think of you. And it's like, there is just this this fire that I always perceive whenever we're talking about something, whether it's like the music that you're creating or other projects that you're working on, or even just like your personal journey of like humanity through the world. And so I mean, I welcome, and I know we're just jumping right in, but I'd love to like start off talking about that. Like, so obviously, if you guys don't already know, you're like a musician who is very talented, a singer-songwriter, like but like more than that, like I feel like all of these words that I use to describe you are just never enough.
Well, it's very kind.
It's like words fail when it comes to like describing the energy that is Wesley Rogers. And I'd love to like explore that and kind of unpack that. And I guess my first question for you is like, have you always had this sort of like dynamo, like larger than life kind of energy, like this zest and this thirst and this hunger for life? Like, has that always been something, or is it something that you've developed as you've gotten older, or what does that look like for you?
I've been actually thinking about that a lot.
Oh.
Because I definitely came to this world with that. And it was very much present in my early childhood. Like when I think of my early childhood, I just at all times wanted to either be like coloring or drawing or dancing or playing or singing and creating, really. And then I think life happens to all of us.
Yeah.
And when you're 5 to 7, you kind of start to conform with the world. It's no one's fault. It just happens. And I think in this last year or two, and in general in the last few months in particular, I'm getting back to that, which is kind of when we met, which is really, or when we started working together and hanging out.
When I slid into your DMs.
When you slid into my DMs and I said, yes. And I think that's actually, so when you say it's always been there, yes, it's always been there because it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like who you are doesn't go anywhere. Like stuff can cover it up.
Yeah.
Like it can get buried down, but it's in you. I've realized like it is still in me, that fire, that like desire to say something that matters has like is so deeply in me, and still is, and I really hope is always there.
Yeah, for sure. So as you've like you said, in the last couple of years, you've started to uncover it. Like, what does that look like for you? Because I know everyone's journey is so personal, and for me, like, I definitely like have read like every self-help book. I've read every personal development. I've explored every like sort of spiritual or religious kind of paradigm and modality, and I mean, I truly believe that like every man is my expert in something. Like every person is like has something to teach me. And I think for a lot of years I was like searching for the one thing, like Lord of the Rings, like one ring to rule them all. Like I was searching for the one thing, and along my journey I realized that there is no one thing. Like it is very much like a personal journey, and it's like what resonates with you, what buoys you up, what inspires you, what motivates you, what replenishes you. And I'm just curious for you, like, has there been one thing that was like a catalyst, or is it just like this constant journey still of exploration, or what does that look like for you?
Well, it's funny you mentioned Lord of the Rings because I've been really obsessed with The Wizard of Oz in the last couple of weeks. And how like that story is also the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
It's like the same in art and movies and music. We tell the same story over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And what they always have in common is they always return home in the end. Mm-hmm. Even after they've climbed the mountain, they turn around and they go home.
Or follow the yellow brick road.
And they go back to Kansas.
Yeah.
And so I think you're incredibly right. I think there are many, many keys for many, many doors. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the point. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's one door.
Yeah.
I think there's probably as many as there are people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so for me, I don't really know exactly what the turning point was, but all I know is that I've always had this direct link between suffering and internal exploration. And so I remember it very clearly when I was 12 and I was sort of forced out of the closet. It was really just a major explosion in my life. And at the same time as when I started writing music. And I'm not saying that you have to suffer in order to create. I am just saying that what led me to really, really focus on making art was this feeling of brokenness. And then the same thing happened when I was 20. I was in college. Like, things were kind of going way better than I thought. I had just signed a publishing deal. I was dating someone I really, really loved being with. And then trauma did what trauma does, which is it just shows up. Again, it's hello. Do you remember me?
Hey,
I'm still in you. And that was, you know, it was a very slow thing for me where I went to therapy, just you know, straight up therapy. But from there is kind of probably I probably read many of the same books as you, in that like I just came very hungry for the answer. And I actually did think that there would be an answer for the last 5 years. Yeah. And now I know there isn't a universal answer, but there also is. And I think the universal answer is like, again, it's whatever's in you. Yeah. So it's individual and it's universal. Yeah. Which is so hard to talk about these things. Yeah. Because I think people do just want to be like, if you do this, you will have this. But that's capitalism. Yeah. That's the patriarchy. That's like, if you believe this, you'll go to heaven. Right. If you buy this, you'll be happy. And it's not tit for tat. No. It's actually... It's not as formulaic as we'd like it to be. And I wish it was. All I can say is, after 5 years of asking these questions over and over and over again, I have more questions than ever. I know less than I've ever known. Yeah. And I'm absolutely more happy and content and peaceful than I've ever been, knowing that I will never, ever know everything. I love that. And I mean, honestly, same. Yeah, like, I think it's that thing where like, I mean, I was raised in like really a high control religion and was really unhappy. And I had a lot of self-judgment. And I remember there was a turning point for me where I was like, if there is a God, like there's no possible way that he would want me to be as unhappy and as like self-abhorring as I actually am. Like, I can't reconcile, even though I've been taught all of these things, like I couldn't reconcile the two things. And so that for me was like such a catalyst. And I love how you speak to like trauma being really like a catalyst for self-exploration. And I think it doesn't always have to be that. Like people don't always have to experience trauma to like, to start to explore these things. But I think it's interesting that like, again, coming from a different like sort of traumatic environment, and then being like, there's got to be something else. Like, that was the catalyst for my exploration. Like, I don't know what the answer is. But what I will say is that after years of, again, that self-exploration and, like, learning and growing and talking to people, like, there is a space and an ease and a joy in my life that I wouldn't trade for anything. No. And I truly believe that, like, it's just the tip of the iceberg. So I'm always asking, like, well, what else? What else is behind this door? Like, what else can add to this joy that I'm experiencing in my life? And I love how you speak to this because it's so often, like, the thing that you're talking about, like, well, that's capitalism, that's the patriarchy, is, like,
we often we're so entrained to settle for less than what's actually available. Like, it's not even less than we deserve. Like, I think that that I deserve this thing has this like almost still resistance to it. But it's like the willingness to be like, I know that there's more available and I'm going to go get it. And I have like, that is my birthright to have joy, to have happiness, to have love, to have ease, to have all of me, like whatever that looks like, I think is such a joy. And I think one of the things I love about you is that you actually invite people to that by being you. Like your very being like shows people that there's another way and that there's another possibility. And I adore you for that. And likewise. I'm so grateful. And
it's curiosity, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is what we started talking about.
Yeah.
It's that childlike view of the world of saying, I know nothing and I could know everything. So I'm going to find out if I can. Yeah. It's like, if you like tarot, it's the Fool card, which you always have to have in you. Yeah. You always have to have, I don't want to speak for anybody. I found that I always have to walk out of my door every day like I'm literally like a fool who, like, I have no idea what's about to happen. Yeah. But I'll say yes. Yeah. I will just say yes to it, whatever it is. And magic continually happens when you do that. It's so hard to do that. And and some days I wake up, I'm like, no, fuck that. Like, I'm not doing that. But like, same. But on good days or days where I feel I have a courage, that is my demeanor. Yeah. Just being curious.
Yeah, for sure.
But the world doesn't really want us to be curious beings. Because when you start digging and asking questions. Yeah. You
start to unveil. It's like the wizard, going back to the Wizard of Oz, you see the wizard behind the curtain.
No, that's literally it. You see that the wizard was just a man. Yeah. And the magic was in Dorothy and was in her friends and the friendship. Yeah. That's the magic. It's also it's like literally the same. It's like the Frodo of it all. It's like it's
Frodo of it all.
It's the Harry Potter of it all. Like like there's magic happening, but the magic was the friendship.
Yeah. Yeah. The relationships,
the connections.
Yeah. And the journey.
Like
that journey of discovery.
I just got chills. It's like it's crazy how it's all the same story. Yeah. And I love that. Like, I feel so much freedom that we don't have to reinvent anything. But we can put our DNA on the story. Totally. That's the point. I love That's the point. You have never been here as you. I've never been here as me. And one day we'll not be here. Yeah. So I just want to be me. And De Niro.
And De Niro wants to say hello.
Our favorite pug.
I know, so good. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how that fires your creation, right? Because I know right now, like you just finished writing your album, and like, what is that? How much of what your personal journey is spills over? And I kind of already know the answer to this, but like spills over into things like when you have to sit down and literally like write a song, because, I mean, not to respectfully, it's your job, right? Like you're like, I have chosen this. My lot in life now is to be a musician, to bring music, to tell stories through music. And so how do you intertwine, or how do you navigate that? Like being true to you, but then also creating something that is that's going to speak to people and connect to them and tell a story that you want them to hear.
I think perhaps one of the greatest lessons I've learned in my whole life thus far. It was a turning point for me as a creator, because I was around 2021 living in Nashville, and I was writing songs all the time, but it just all felt so hollow and just felt like it was like this puzzle that I was like, I don't think I'll ever understand this. And it felt like a heft to create anything. And then a couple things happened. We were just talking about her, but Brandi Carlile just released her album, By the Way I Forgive You. And I heard that record, specifically the song By the Way I Forgive, or Every Time I Hear That Song, which is about, she's publicly spoken about this, about a pastor who, when she was very young, like publicly humiliated her for being gay. And I was like, oh, that's the point. I want to do that. And that's kind of when I found Joni Mitchell too. And knowing that, I mean, all of her songs were like her story, and specifically the album Blue is about her giving her baby up for adoption. I don't know what that's like. I'm not a person who can give birth or has ever given birth and has never given that baby up for adoption. I don't know that pain, but when you listen to her, that very specific pain is so universal. And so I found, so quickly after I started kind of writing from that, like, and I wrote the song called Jacob from the Bible, which over and over again, I keep it in my set always. Because it's my story about being named Jacob, but also having my first boyfriend's name was Jacob in Missouri, and it's through this big lens. It's very niche. It's a very niche song, but that song more than any other song has opened doors.
Yeah. Because
I allowed the very specific to be universal. Because I think people want us to think it's the opposite. Where if you're general, you'll apply it to more people. Maybe that's true for some people, but not really for me.
Yeah.
I think we want to see people telling the truth so that we can, in fact, find the truth for ourselves. That's I mean, that's what I crave, and that's what when I watch a movie or when I just whether it's funny or whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be so serious. Sometimes comedy's the best way to tell the truth. Right? And so that's kind of how I feel now. It's like the album I made. It's like it's just me. That's why, like, I don't even know if it's good or bad, because I can't judge it, because it just feels like a self-portrait.
Yeah. Well, and I think you bring up a really good point, too. Like, I love and thank you for sharing all that, because, like, the thing about good or bad is that it is a judgment. Like, it goes back into what you're saying, where, like, we're talking about how we try to compartmentalize, or we try to decide whether or not something fits or doesn't fit, or like, and that's all capitalism, right? Like, it's all like
the binary of it all. The good or the bad, the heaven, the hell. Right? Like, it's just like,
yeah. And so whereas it's like, if you're just willing to be like, here's what I created, and if you know, you know.
And you have to be okay. I'm saying this to myself. You have to be okay with maybe not being rewarded immediately, in 10 years, or in your lifetime.
Yeah. My
favorite people of all time, when I think about Walt Whitman, Oscar Wilde, those are two that come to mind. Even someone like Leonard Cohen, who, like, all had, immense, on a certain level, had a great amount of worldly success. Yeah. It's really kind of after they've died, even like the Van Gogh of it all. Like, those people, for some crazy reason, were able to continue doing their shit. And they knew they were being honest, and they knew the world wasn't really responding to it. And now look at it, you know? Now think of if Van Gogh just, like, didn't paint all that. Yeah. The world would literally be different. Yeah. Our art would be different, which means the world would be different. Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. See, I'm just kind of like, literally keep going. Whatever it is, just keep going. Yeah. That's the hard part.
Well, and I think that's what, like, my friend Renee, who's also been a guest on a previous episode, like, we talked about this, how she and I, she was my first roommate in LA. Like, we literally slept in the same bed because we were both just, like, so broke and couldn't, like, it just was struggle, like, struggle in every sense of the word, right? And so it was really interesting because now fast forward, like, she was an executive at, like, the chief, like, diversity officer at a major marketing company. Wow. Like, I've, like, made my way from, like, hairdresser to educator to trainer to platform artist to artistic director, like, brand ambassador, like, all of these things where, like, that, it's great to list all of those things, like, amazing artist on a stage with people like Brandi Carlile and singing Elton John songs. Like, it's easy to look at that and say, like, oh, well, that's their unique path. But the thing about it is, like, when I look back, I realize it was just the choice to put one foot in front of the other that actually, like, where now I look back and I'm like, oh, wow, like, look at what got created there. And I think that's so much of what we're speaking about even right now, whether it's, like, your personal journey or whether it's a professional journey or whatever that creative process is. It's like the willingness to put one foot in front of the other is all you can do. Ultimately, it's all you can do.
It's also all you can really focus on. Yeah. It's the really profound Martin Luther King quote of, like, I don't need to see the whole staircase, just the next step. Yeah. Like, that because I think in our hearts we know the whole staircase. I would assume there was part of you that always believed in yourself somewhere that where you're sitting right now, you'd be here. Maybe you forgot a lot, because I've forgot a lot.
Yeah.
But I think that's, so in a way, we know the whole staircase.
Yeah.
And I think people know that. I think that just goes back to how hard the world is and how just devastating it is on so many levels for so many people, and
invalidating.
And it's scary, and it's just not easy. But the one step thing is that you're so right.
And I think too, like I love this conversation, because the other thing too that I've really looked at a lot is how, like, it's not, we try to craft our lives in a way that feels authentic, right? Or like, I think a lot, not everybody obviously, but like I think we and probably a lot of people that are watching this, like, you try to craft your life in a way that's authentic to you and that is like a contribution to people and creates a sense of community. And I think what's really interesting, and in my journey, I've realized that so often I think I need to build something that's not actually there. And I've realized that it's actually like this uncovering and this discovering of what is actually there, which seems like if you know, but it seems like maybe two sides of the same coin, but it's actually very different. Like, the work of building you, I think ultimately is really the work of just like unveiling the like the covers that have been put upon you, whether it's because of society or trauma or, our own like sort of negative thoughts and things like that. And I always love talking to people who are like in that process of like, no, like, I'm not maybe fully done in the uncovering or the unveiling.
Yeah.
But
I hope we never are.
Right. Exactly.
I hope
exactly.
I hope it's a constant unveiling.
But it's like, but you've dedicated yourself enough to the point that it's like the you that is standing up in the world is such an undeniable invitation that like, hey, this work is hard, but like it can also like it can create magic in the world.
That's really, at the end of the day, all I want to do. Like, really all I want to do is remind people that everything they need is within them. And the way you find that is different for everybody.
Yep,
totally. And the way I can remind people is just making music and making art where I'm talking about my way. That's it. And I'm not saying my way is the way, because it's not the way. Right. It's my way. Yeah. And there might be, I think we all have little things that rhyme. For sure. And for sure. There's certain practices that work for a lot of people, but it's such a specific journey. And that's just something that was never taught to me. I don't feel like I was ever taught like our fingerprints, like our DNA, our own journey is that unique. Yeah. And it will never be again.
And that is your superpower. Like, it's not only just that your journey is unique and that like your unique set of fingerprints is just that, your unique set. It's like, I think so many conversations are about, and I feel like you're so the person to have this conversation with, because I feel like so many of the conversations are about assimilating or like seeing yourself represented. And I think there are places and spaces where like it should be safe for people that are queer or whatever that looks like, or people of color, like, or, include all of the LGBTQIA plus, like there should absolutely be places where people, or the world, not just places, the world where people are safe. But I think also too, like really acknowledging that like there is no one like you, and that is your superpower, and there shouldn't be anyone else like you.
And they don't want us to know that, because
that is so true.
I sound like a conspiracy theorist. When I say they, I just mean like the structures, because here's the criticism when you say that. When you say, oh, I'm unique, I'm individual, they say, oh, you're self-centered. They say, oh, you're so self-absorbed, you're a megalomaniac, you're an egomaniac. Yeah. I'm like, narcissist. No, I'm literally, there's only me, and there's only you. Yes. It goes both ways. And when I think you really look into people's eyes, this has been a practice for me that's changed my life in the last, month. I was on my way home from Italy. I took this trip after I finished writing my album because I just wanted to go see art, and I did. And I was on the plane, and I realized most of my life I've not looked into people's eyes. Because I realized it's devastating to do that. Yeah. And it's also devastating to let yourself be seen. It's so hard. But when you do, you literally you learn everything that you might need to know. And you just realize you're looking at a human who might be hurting, who might be having a hard time, or having a great time.
Yeah.
But what you feel is compassion. And I think compassion is absolutely 100% what is most needed in general in the entire world. Compassion. Because compassion opens the door for love. Curiosity is very similar to compassion for me. Because it's the story of the Holy Grail. Percival is kind of this foolish knight who ends up getting the Grail. And he gets the Grail, so the Grail is guarded by a very sick king. And all the other ones try to fight the king or try to break in. And Percival goes up, this very foolish knight, and he looks in the king's eyes and he says, "What ails you?" And that compassion is what allows the king to give him the Grail. It wasn't force.
Yeah.
It wasn't knowing what to do. It was just looking into someone's eyes and asking, "How are you? What's going on? How can I help?" That's all we need.
So powerful.
It's so simple, but it's like, it's it. Yeah. I really think that's one thing where I'm saying, oh, that is one of the answers, is compassion.
I love that. Because I also think too, like going back to what you're saying about, like there's only one you, like there's only one me, there's only one Paula, there's only one Jake. Like in this moment, like this is all I am. And I think so often, like you said, when you come with all of that potency, it can be threatening to some people. And I think I love what you say about the compassion, because there is so much room for compassion in that reaction. And, I think there's so many conversations about inclusivity and so many conversations about like representation, which I think is so important, but it's like, how do you represent something that's never existed? And it's like it's like
that's a hard question,
right? But it's like that's the thing is it's like that's where our charge and our call and our opportunity is truly to like step into all that we are in every moment. And I think where we often shrink and where people want to like homogenize and assimilate is that because you're immediately putting yourself in a vulnerable position, because if you don't like what I'm showing up as in all of the things, like you're gonna reject it, right? And rejection's not fun. Like people don't love that. And so I think it's really interesting. But if I love what you said about leading with compassion, because even if you're not in a space to celebrate what I'm inviting you to, I can still have compassion and I can still allow that kindness and that love to be the invitation. And I think like I love that element of adding the compassion into the interaction.
I think it's step one.
Yeah,
and I think curiosity and compassion are almost the same.
Yeah. With yourself first.
Sorry, not to go back to the same thing we keep talking about. It is the childlike curiosity.
Yeah.
A child doesn't judge unless a child is taught to judge, which a child inevitably is going to be taught to judge. Yeah. Because we all are just judging everything all the time.
Yeah.
But they're curious and they ask a lot of questions. Yeah. Like too many, like an annoying amount of questions. Like it annoys us as adults because we're like,
stop asking questions.
Literally. But it annoys us because we stopped asking questions.
Yeah. Which is funny though, because as I will say, so I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and like essentially every time I see kids, it just happened yesterday in the airport where I saw these two little twin boys who were like, oh my gosh, they were so cute. And I could tell that they were just running their mother ragged. And I watched them, like one of them was running around, she had the other one by the hand, and I looked at her and I could just see, and I was just like, they're so beautiful. And like that joy is such a gift. Like, thank you. And she was like, just melted her world. Whereas like I saw this other guy, I was also then sitting at a bar having a glass of wine, and this guy who was just so put out by like, and anytime the like children's noise went above an acceptable level. And I just was like, it was such an interesting reminder that like, your perspective and just like your willingness to receive actually contributes so much to the world around you. Like I was so just delighted by these kids. Like, and I know they were wild and I know they were running their mother ragged, but
she needed compassion.
But
and
exactly.
You gave it to her.
But I think like to your point, and thank you, and like to your point about like just the willingness to have that childlike wonder, I was like, that is the energy that I actually want to walk through the world with.
We're
like
looking
just
at
this
it wrong.
exuberance. And just as like there is no wrongness, there's only possibility. And I think you totally hit it on the head and bring up such a great point for all of us to look at is like, and like you said, we're looking at it wrong.
No,
like,
because we both live in Los Angeles, and we're in this sort of bubble, but we're also in this place where there's a huge housing crisis. There's more unhoused people than ever. And I don't have any answers yet. And I'm not even educated in any way. But it's just, I have this newfound curiosity for like, oh, we're looking at all of this wrong. The person who's screaming on the street that we're afraid of, I actually think that me walking by that person and averting my eyes and just trying to go on with my day, I'm the problem. I am 100% the problem. How have I allowed myself to walk by a human who might be suffering or might not be suffering? I don't know. And avoid them. And I'm not preaching to anybody except for myself right now. Like I'm actively asking myself questions. How this is an agreement that I'm not happy that I agreed with. Yeah. And what can I do? I don't know yet. But that's just an example of where curiosity and compassion on a very early stage is leading me. And I'm looking forward to learning a lot more when it comes to that, because it's just right here in front of us. Yeah. And that's where we have to start. Yeah. You have to start with yourself, but then you start with your community and with people around you. And I'm also I'm tired of like trying to save anyone. Like, because I think that curiosity can also, there's this tendency to lead, like it leads to, oh, well, I have power, so I can save you. It's the white saviorism of it all. Yeah. It's, and that just goes back to colonialism. That just goes like, it's really, really icky. Yeah. When we look under the covers, it's so icky. Yeah. And it makes me feel very ashamed of certain qualities within me. But I'm trying to just be more open about that. Yeah. Because I don't think people want to talk about that. Talk about like inherent ickiness. Yeah. But that's kind of been my whole life. It's like, can we just talk about this?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing is like anything that you avoid controls you. Ooh. So I think...
keep saying things and I'm like, that should be like a sign.
But I mean, it's true though. Like if you think about things that you've just been like, you've just avoided or you've procrastinated on or whatever that is. And you're just like, no, it's going to be terrible. Or like, think of a conversation, like a hard conversation that you've just put off and put off and put off. And you think of all the ways it's going to go terrible. And then you actually have the conversation and you're just like, oh, okay. And then like the ease and the space that gets created on the other side of that, like the anticipation of it is so much worse and so much more overpowering than just like having the conversation and moving forward. And I think that's why like when I say anything that you're like avoiding controls you, it's because like you're not actually avoiding it. Like it is in your brain, it's in your face, like you're thinking about it all the time, you're wondering like how to navigate it. And I think there is a space where like, yeah, you need some time to kind of, reconcile, like, what is it that I like to create and all those things. But ultimately, like, if you're not willing to look at something, like, it's going to control you. Like, your avoidance actually becomes the determining factor of the creation of your life. Yes. And I think, like, I love what you're saying about, like, I don't have answers. And it's not about having answers, but it is about being willing to be aware of something that's showing up in your world and looking at the different ways that you may want it to go. And you don't have to have an answer, like, to get from point A to point B. But, like, I think the more clear you can get on what it is you'd like to create, the easier it is to find the things that match the energy to support that.
Amen. Amen. And like, I was just in Nashville, and I'm gonna finish recording my record there because I lived there for 5 years, and I've always had a really difficult time with Nashville, and now too, like politically, it's just taken a really, really, it's always been bad. It's just very, very, we're aware of it now. Anyway, so I was back there, I was recording, and there's this labyrinth there, this like walking little like meditation labyrinth that someone told me to go to like 3 years ago, and every time I go there, and even like 3 years ago, like I was in no way as like open to, I don't even know what to call it. Like, I rolled my eyes at it basically, which is, I think, but I still went. Yeah. And every time I'm there, like, and at these labyrinths, you're supposed to kind of walk in, and it's a meditation. You let go of the world. You, in the center, you can ask a question. And then maybe you hear an answer, maybe you don't. But every time there, like something crazy happens. We could do a whole podcast about everything. But this last time I went, and the whole time I like couldn't think of a question. I was like, because every question I asked, I was like, I'm like, I know the answer to that. Like there is no answer. Yeah. And then when I got in the middle, I was like, what I felt really deeply in my heart was just like, you're the question now. Go out in the world and be a question mark. Be something that people look at and maybe they get really confused. Maybe you're the question that leads them to an answer. Maybe, because if you just ask these questions enough and publicly, it like you live into the answer. And I don't know when that'll happen. It might happen the day I die. I don't know. But like, I think that's kind of the point, is just to walk around and be a question mark for the world.
Which I think you're succeeding at.
Well, thank you.
Well done. But I do want to, I want to ask you about this. And this is like, I mean, I feel like we're having this really amazing conversation. But like, I want to ask about this because so much of your like physical image, like tall, the bright hair, the like crazy, like you have these crazy, amazing costumes. You're welcome. You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
It's all Paula.
But like,
and my mom.
Yeah, right.
She gave me the jeans.
You grew it.
She gave me the jeans. But you helped so much.
To the next level.
Yes.
But like, even when I watch you on stage, it's like you have this. You're even just like I'm gonna say your aesthetic, but your style is so like confronting, right? And I love what you said about like sometimes as you're walking through the world with, as a question mark, like people like they might reject it, they might celebrate it, they might like ask a question themselves, but like does that actually happen to you, like where you find people are having like they're projecting judgments or they're whatever that is, like do you feel like that happens?
Oh, constantly. Literally constantly. LA's a bubble again, like LA, like I think in the places that we inhabit, actually no, that's actually a lie, because we talked about this a lot, like it actually happens here, but it's less apparent. When I'm from Missouri, and I'm going home to Missouri on Saturday. There's not, when I walk around Missouri, I obviously like very immediately I look very different. And they're all kind of choices that I've made. It's not like, that's the interesting thing about it. Well, I mean, obviously my innate queerness is in no way a choice, but like the expression of bold colors and bright, that's a choice I've made, but it used to be very insecure about it. Even though I feel like for a long time I was bold and very afraid. Which I think being bold and having courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. I think being bold is doing something when you are afraid. Yeah. But now I'm way less afraid.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm still afraid. I'm still definitely get afraid.
Yeah.
I'm way less afraid though. Because I know that when someone looks at me, like I might as well be a mirror. And they might as well be a mirror.
Say more about that. The mirror thing. What do you mean?
Well, our beloved Sebas has taught us that if you hate it, you have it. And when he told me that about a month ago, it was like, oh, duh. Nobody's really looking at each other. They're just looking at themselves. So when the two people that bullied me growing up, the two I can like really remember, like where it was kind of like an ongoing thing, they're both openly queer now.
Look at you, get the chica.
Literally. And it's not always that. It's not always that.
Of course.
it's really...
So that's a very strong example.
But what that taught me is... whatever they saw in me that I was freely expressing, and the purity that came with that, they, in themselves, probably felt similar things, and didn't... You right? If you hate it, you have it.
Tucker's lending his voice to the choir.
Tucker's like, preach! They felt it in themselves, and it scared the hell out of them. And instead of facing with themselves, they projected on to me, and that's what's happening. That's what's happening on a large scale in this country. When it comes to all the anti-LGBTQ legislation, over 500 bills in the last year or so,
right?
Mostly targeting transgender people.
Yeah. And targeting is like, that word is not used lightly. Like,
no,
when it's 500 bills, like, it's targeting.
It is intentional.
Yeah.
It is, and the intention is, no, go back. Go back in the closet, go back into hiding. We know you're there. We're okay with you being there. Just hide. We don't want to see you. And what that is actually saying is we don't want to see ourselves. Because it's always the outsider that teaches everyone. I mean, y'all can fight me on that, but I believe that it's always the one who sort of comes from outer space. It's like that triggers everyone and sets a lot of people free. And I'm not saying that's what I'm doing. I'm just saying that, like, in general, we have many people are doing that all at once.
But also, let's not deny the impact of, like, you walking through the world, because it's like, it is what you're doing. Like, you are showing up as all of you, and this is me acknowledging you. Like you are showing up, and you are, like, the people that are ready to hear the message that is Jake Wesley Rogers. Like, I'm not talking about your music. I'm not talking about the lyrics. I'm not talking about the songs. I'm talking about you walking through the world. Like, it is an undeniable invitation to the people that are, like, just waiting for someone to, like, be the voice in the wilderness, to be the one that's like, okay, like, if he can do it, maybe I could do it.
I hope.
Absolutely.
And I hope that I always keep that in check, because I am very conscious of, like, the power that is, and it's so easy to become corrupted with that, and to start an organization, or to start, like, you know what I mean? Like, literally, if I start an organization,
the
like,
People's Republic of Jake
call
Wesley
my mom
Rogers.
and like send me home. Like, I'm going home.
Yeah.
I'm not here to start anything.
Yeah.
I'm not here to end anything. I'm a link in the chain.
Yeah.
I think I'm here to mess things up a little bit.
Yeah, probably.
I want to make
rearrange.
I want to, like, being the question mark. I really want to, like, be the question mark, and, like, make a lot of people perhaps doubt or ask questions. I just want to create a space where people can ask themselves big questions, and that only they can answer. I think that's my little intention right now.
I love that. No, I love that. And I think, like, it's like such a, like, it's the ultimate crusade, like, empowering people to be themselves.
Oof.
And, like, letting them know that, like, no, it's okay.
Yeah, it's taken a long time. It feels like forever. And it's all I can hope. And saving one person's life is enough, and oftentimes that's ourselves.
1000%.
Yeah, oftentimes it is our, and that's enough.
I love
That's really enough. And I feel like I'm actively doing that. And whatever else happens is out of my control.
Yeah. So what are the things that, like, you wake up and you're excited about first thing? Like, you open your eyes.
Aww.
And what is that? Like, what's the, like, ooh?
Usually about, like, drinking some water. But after that, I don't know. It's been different lately than the last 5 years. I think,
okay.
Like, the last 5 years, I've been very kind of almost militant about, like, my, like, practices. You know, I think for a long time it was like, I journal, and then I meditate, and then I do yoga, and then I pray, and then I read, and then 4 hours later I'm like, whoa. But now I still do that, but I feel like I'm treating myself less like I'm being less of a boss. Like I'm like to myself, like you have to do this. Like those, I think whatever practice you can do in your life that does like kind of you can do every day that keeps you grounded here is important. And I still do those things. But I think when I wake up, I try to do something very simple when I wake up. I'm very excited to do this because usually I have some sort of dream or something, and either I'll write it down or like I just make something. I usually try to draw something when I wake up. It's always different, but like I usually draw something or I sit at the piano for like 5 or 10 minutes. Because or I'll do morning pages.
Yeah.
Those are kind of all feel like the same.
Shout out to the Artist's Way.
Shout out to the Artist's Way. Actually, a huge help.
Yeah.
For me, but I think I get excited in the morning about being able to be here another day, and saying yes to whatever heft that might be, and I also get excited about who I might meet in that day, and who I might see, and what I might learn from them. Like it's just the more I view life like that, the more magical things I become witness of. So yeah, that's kind of what excites me lately.
I love it.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, for sure.
When you wake up.
So I think like I definitely for the last several years have been very like get up and go. Like I didn't have a morning ritual. I would just like wake up, I'd check my messages. There'd be a million because I do so much business with like people all over the world. Yeah. So like there'd be messages from Australia and messages from Europe and like so I think I would just like wake up and immediately get into work mode. Yeah. And I really started to experience a lot of like just I think probably anxiety and like burnout, like the beginnings of burnout. Simply because I was always in like go mode, like the adrenaline was constantly pumping, which is not a bad thing inherently. It's just like when that is sun up to sundown, it's not sustainable.
It isn't.
And so I definitely in the last several weeks, I've really started to streamline a lot of things. I've let go of a lot of projects. Wow. And I've really just started to look at the things that are really aligned with who I want to be and the future that I want to create. And it's created a space where I still am like creating a lot and working and emailing and, you know, meetings and taking clients and things like that. But I definitely wake up slower. And, you know, we'll snuggle my pups and like maybe think a little bit about the day, but also take more time to like read or, you know, do a little bit of meditation, or like even like sun salutations, like 4 to 6 of those if I can, which like I am not one that's like, I'm not here to like profess yoga or like convert anyone, but for me, like getting up, moving my body gets me in my body and that like grounding process really like sets the tone for my day. So I think like for me, I've really been on a journey of like, what's true for me? Like what's really true for me? Yeah. Like what's actually the thing that like, what do I know? What do I believe? Like, what do I not know that I want to get more clarity on? And a lot of that has driven kind of my journey recently. And it's been funny, like all of those questions for me actually has created a sense of peace because it makes every day an exploration. And I think that's what I'm excited about is like waking up and being like, okay, like what's going to happen today? Like, I don't know, but let's see.
Question mark.
Yeah, totally. And I think living as the question has been such a dynamic contribution to just like being more of me like every day and not, you know, being tied to an outcome or, you know, really trying to control the flow and just like literally being in the flow, I think has been something. So, I think that's probably, I know it's a long answer, but like, I think that's what excites me is like waking up and being like, how can I best be in the flow today? Yeah. Like, and yes, I've got things to do. And yes, there's like to-do lists and tasks and meetings and all those things. But like, how can I include that as part of my journey instead of trying to like segment? Yes. Like this is work, Paula. This is like home, Paula. This is like spirituality, Paula. This is, you know, and allowing all of those things to kind of commingle, which isn't something that is often encouraged.
No, it's like we're encouraged to like code shift. Like every second. And
totally.
I still do that. Mm-hmm. Like the me that's on the business meeting call versus like the me in a songwriting session versus the me now. But I do think that I'm becoming more me in all of that.
Yeah, totally.
And
it will look different.
It will look different.
Yeah.
But there is a level of like I think if I heard this conversation 5 years ago, a lot of the things I'm saying I probably would have been triggered by.
Yeah.
And I probably would have rolled my eyes to a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I have to do this. I'm busy. I have a job.
Yeah.
Like, I can't wake up and do that. Mm-hmm. Valid.
Yeah.
Very valid.
Yeah.
And there is always time to choose yourself. Whether that's 20 minutes or an hour. There is always time. They're actually... That's a big statement to make, but I do think for everyone there is at least one moment in the day where you are you and you're away from the world and you're not on your phone and you connect. And I think that's essential.
Yeah.
And I think it's what we're missing right now in the world. I think it's I don't know what that looks like for everybody, but like
totally. But I love that you say that because I think like there is a space where it's like it is a privilege to say like I fully recognize that like you said, you know, you have your like you could have a 4-hour practice sometimes and maybe that's not every day, but like you've got that thing where you've included all your things and that there's a privilege attached to that. And it's the same for me. Like I have moments where I'm like, I think about like the single mother with like like children that she's like going to her minimum wage job and maybe doesn't have a vehicle and she's on the bus or she's doing all the, like I think about that worst case scenario. Even you talked about like all of the people in Los Angeles that are unhoused currently. Like I think about those people and I'm like, yeah, it is a luxury for me to be able to take time to ground myself. But I also realize that even at the height of whatever you're in, taking time to ground yourself is actually the thing that will change your situation if that's what you're looking to create. And
allow you to bring more compassion into the world.
Totally.
Like I think that's what I'm learning about the immense privilege that I've just been awarded by being born in this body, in this country, is I will always feel it, and I hope I'm always very aware of it, and I hope I always remember, how do I say this? That it means absolutely nothing unless I give it all away. Like, I think that's the point. Because the most holy people I've met in my life are ones who have little. Little. I think the most holy people in the world are people we'll never know about. People that they don't write books. They don't. They probably have some pretty small, simple life, and they are saints. They are,
and so happy,
and they are so happy. And here I am being like, but I do. It's there's this Mary Oliver quote. She's one of my favorites, but it's so simple. I had it above my mirror for a long time. And it's the birds who own nothing, the reason they can fly. I'm not saying you need to give up everything, but it's only a gift if you give it away. The moment a gift stops being a gift is when you hold on to it. Then you're hoarding it. And that gift is not a gift anymore. And that goes for everything. That goes for money, that goes for kindness, that goes for lessons you learn, that goes for... I think we're just this constant, things come in and they're supposed to come out. And that feeling of scarcity, that feeling of it just doesn't make sense for me to be afraid. But with the amount of privilege I have, for me to be afraid that if I give this away, I won't have anything is literally ludicrous. Literally. It's stupid and it's not acceptable. And I don't accept it in myself.
Well, and I think I love that you said that, a gift is only a gift when you give it away. And for me, I love what you said, too, going back to our previous conversation about when you can truly have, compassion and, acceptance and celebration of yourself. You recognize that, your gifts are truly infinite. You are truly infinite. You are an infinite being. Universes upon universes. And so there is no like emptying of the well. Like there's always going to be more to gift. And I think it's really, I love that that's where you go with that, because then it's like, they're like, what are you going to do? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you going to do with your life? But like show up and show out and invite other people to do the same thing. Like what, like, why would you choose anything else?
That's it. And going back to your example of, you know, when we think of someone who has the least amount of privilege in this country, and this goes back to just viewing it all wrong, because they know something that people who have so much will never know.
Yeah.
Like, they have had to, I don't know their experience, but I just know that if we are more compassionate and more curious, we could learn everything from each other.
So true.
We could really learn everything from each other that we need to know. Yeah. And that's, I'm preaching to myself. Like, I'm actively casting spells on myself to have more compassion.
Yeah.
And just to lean in.
Yeah.
And as a human, and ask what ails you. And that's it.
Yeah. Just that small thing.
It's huge, but it's small.
Yeah.
You know.
Totally. You know. I love it. That's so good. And I think too, like, you bring up such a cool, just an interesting conversation too around like community and like finding people that will lift you up in that journey of exploration and like will protect you and support you and celebrate you in that process. And I think it's interesting because like one of the so the company that's actually sponsoring, the brand that's sponsoring this podcast, it's called Vigaro. Shout out to Vigaro. We just had meetings. I was up in San Francisco and we were having meetings about this this show that they have coming up called Iconic 23. And so it's all about like this kind of coming together of beauty professionals and industry professionals, and you know, they have like makeup artists and fitness professionals and all this stuff. And one of the things that we talked about is how much people just really desire community, like whether it's on a personal level or on a professional level. And I think one of the things that's really cool about like when you are clear on what it is that you want to create, whether it's like, you know, a beautiful album or like an industry event, like they're not the same, but it's like they all are geared towards creating a similar result, which is like bringing people together, showing them a different way, inspiring them, motivating them, empowering them. And I think it's like, that's where the humanity of life is. And that's like where the fun of it really is. And it's such a cool, I think it's a cool thing to see where like even me, like with my years in the beauty industry, to be able to partner with companies or to work with people or to choose things in my life that are aligned is like something that I think I took for granted for so long. And I think that thing of like getting clear on, you know, your thing about compassion, like what are the things that I can choose that are going to facilitate more compassion in the world? Or what are the things that I can choose that are going to facilitate more like, you know, forgiveness or joy or whatever that is. It's like, you know, if, for the people that are listening to this now or watching it, it's like, what's the thing for you? Like, what is it? It might be compassion. It might be joy. It might be something else completely different, but like find your, find your thing and go for it. Like literally run, like just go for it. Like run towards it.
Yeah.
And just trust that the universe has your back and that, you know, that the people that are looking for the thing that you're creating will come. They will show up.
You become a magnet.
Totally.
It's silly to say, but it is.
But it's true.
It's true. Like, just you. That's. I think that is actually when you find your community. Is when you start to
radiate
and be yourself. It's just. It's kind of. It's. It. If I really wrote down all like the random little interactions I have during the day with people, like it's just, it almost feels fake. Like it almost just feels like there's someone writing a script upstairs and like they're like kind of a bad comedian, like because it's all so connected,
right?
And
yeah, like, but you couldn't write a script like that.
You
like,
couldn't.
It's so connected that there's no way you could possibly plan for something.
No, it's like, almost too much sometimes.
Yeah, like
this is a little funny story, but like yesterday I woke up and I was sitting at the piano for just like, the plan was just like 10 minutes. And one of my very dear friends here, Kristen, who I think is an example of someone I found by just me being me, and we have a lot of things in common, etc. She got me this. She was just at home in Florida, and I the last few weeks I've been obsessed with like I've been dressing up as like this wizard
I've seen
for
it.
like as a joke, like because my friend was having a birthday
It's also
party.
so not
It's also
a
like
joke.
not a
Like,
joke.
it's
I
like,
know,
yeah,
that's the thing.
like-
Because I got it because my friend was having a birthday party that was Renaissance themed, and like so obviously I'm gonna be a wizard. So I went like full Merlin. It's like blue but with like the big gray beard, and it's just really funny. Because especially with my glasses, it's really funny. Anyway, she found this like sculpture, and it's like a blue wizard, but he's holding dice, and it says the Wizard of Odds, which is really funny because I've been obsessed with the Wizard of Odds.
I love that.
And I was in New Orleans in April, and I was on a bike, and I stopped because there's a garage sale, and my grandma taught me that you can never pass a garage sale.
Yeah, obviously.
Like, it's actually...
Same, my grandma.
It's
we
like,
have the same grandma.
We have the same grandma. If it's illegal to go past a garage sale and not stop where I'm from. It's a crime. So I stopped. And all I found was this really creepy little tiger. It's like creepy looking, and I love weird things, but it's like kind of fake fur, and it's also like busted. Like one of the legs is like, it's like weird, but I have it on my piano. And the wizard, I put next to it, and the wizard's also kind of creepy, and they literally look like the same artist made them. They didn't. Anyway, I was sitting at the piano, and I was just like, blah, 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 blah. And then I look at the wizard, and and I'm like, I've seen this. And I'll show you later. Like, and I remember, I keep all my journals. And about a year ago, I was in Buenos Aires. And I just had these colored pencils. And I was listening to music. And I started drawing this little tiger. I forgot all of this. I started drawing this little tiger. Who's like also kind of just like little and scrawny. And like, and I like... For like 30 minutes, I was just a creative, weird thing I did. I was like, made this like story about this little tiger who's like afraid to be a big tiger. Like that was it. But it's a little tiger on one page. And then I start drawing this wizard. This is a year ago. I start drawing this blue wizard. And then the radio station I was listening to started playing Eye of the Tiger. And then it was just like really funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I drew that a year ago. Forgot about it. Look at my piano. And there's a physical tiger and a physical wizard just
chilling,
looking at me.
Yeah.
Okay, what does that mean? Like, I think a lot of people will be like, whoa, that's crazy. A lot of people will be like, whatever. The fact is, what we believe, what we create, what we write down, what we speak, energy follows that. A term like manifestation, everyone's talking about it. It's like very like, and I also feel like we're in like we've talked about this, like a capitalistic manifestation thing where it's like, yeah, like that's valid. Like you can manifest, having more money or whatever, having more followers or like whatever. We've all done it. However, I think the point of it is A, it's real, and B, like that was just a moment where I was like, whoa, I drew this, and in no way did I intend to have these exact things looking at me. It really blew my actual mind, and I hope everybody believes me because I could never make that up.
Yeah.
And that just goes back to the magical life. It's just what we believe is true.
Yep.
What we believe is true. I don't actually think there's a universal truth. I think the universal truth is that it is an individual truth. Yep. That is hard to say.
Yeah, and that your point of view creates your reality. Like exactly what you said. Like if you're willing to lean in, and there's people that would hear that story and be like, "Wow, you're so connected to your future."
I guess.
And there are people that will hear it and be like, "Oh, what a weird coincidence." And it's like either way, that's their point of view and that's their reality.
And my version of it is like, oh shit, I need to be careful about what I believe. I need to be careful of the things I put into the world.
Yep.
When I use social media, I need to make sure that it, for me, is compassionate and it is kind and it is open-hearted. When I use all these things, because that stuff is real.
Yep.
I can't, like, the stuff we put out there is casting spells on everybody.
Yeah. Like words are magic.
Literally, and words, like, you spell a word.
Spelling.
You spell a word. If I say, you look beautiful today, and you do look so beautiful. I've told you like 3,000 times already.
Thank you.
That is a spell.
Yeah.
but I mean it. And I know that you feel it.
Yep.
But if someone comes up to you and is critical,
yep,
you feel that too. So we just have to be so careful.
It's so true.
With the things we think and say and believe.
I love that message. So good.
I know.
I was like, woo! Speaking of spells, we cast some spells today. With this conversation. I love it. Okay, so there's no like real segue for this, but basically, one of the things about the Paula Peralta show this season, at least, is that every guest that comes on, I think you know this about me, like I love Crocs. I'm always wearing Crocs.
Yes.
Like always.
Oh, I love your Crocs.
Always.
I love them.
I love them so much. So I decided that every guest on the show gets a pair of Crocs. So I go and like choose the one.
You did not.
Like, yes, I did.
That's why you asked me my shoe size?
Yes.
I was so confused.
But you answered it so beautifully. So I got
have them right there.
I got you a pair of Crocs.
What? These are my Crocs.
Yeah.
These are my Crocs.
Those are your Crocs.
These are so beautiful.
Yeah.
If you're just listening, they are floral. They are like a baby blue. They feel like me.
Like good.
Thank you very much. That's such a sweet gift.
Yeah. We're not sponsored yet, but Crocs, if you're listening.
Thanks, Crocs. Thanks, Paula.
I know. They're so good. I'm so glad you love them.
This is perfect.
They're so beautiful.
Oh,
they look great.
I will actually treasure those. Will be perfect for summer.
Yes.
I'm gonna take those to Missouri with me.
Do it.
I'm gonna blow people's minds.
Do it. Happy to contribute to that.
Great.
I love it. Well, thanks for this conversation. It's such a gift and always a joy, obviously.
Thank you for having me. Always. You're the best.
Thanks everyone for watching. Obviously, if you're listening to this on wherever you get your podcasts, please like and comment, share it, tell your friends. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. And again, same thing, tell your friends. I actually love that we're filming this and that it's audio because I think it just really, like, you got to see people. I want to see people, which is why we're filming. So thank you so much for joining and supporting the Paula Peralta Show, and we'll see you next time.
Yay. Bye.
Bye.